What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. We're talking about the entire MCU in the lead up to Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness in theaters May 6th. But you already knew that from the description of every other rewatch video we've done. Welcome to the rewatch. Today we're talking Captain Marvel. Max, it's the last film before Endgame. What are your thoughts on this one?
See, I think my biggest problem with Captain
Great
Marvel
start.
is that it is right before Endgame. You know, I'm not really sure where it could fall earlier in the release order where it would make sense, or even I don't know. I mean, after doesn't really make sense either. It could, but I think it would feel a little bit cheap. So they had to fit her movie in somewhere, and I think that is its biggest downfall, right? Is that it was trying to compete with the market that Endgame was vacuuming up like nobody's business, and it got burned for that. You know, I think it overall is actually a very good film. I enjoyed it. I think it has another one of those villains that is not quite what they seem, when it ends up being her former allies and planet sharing members in Jude Law and Gemma Chan.
We just watched the movie, dude.
And
It's Hala is the name of the planet. Yon-Rogg is Jude Law.
no, I know. I just
I'm
wanted.
just owning you on this movie that you like more than me.
I mean, fine. I was just talking about the actors, and I wasn't talking about the characters.
My bad.
Themselves.
Withdrawn.
Yeah.
We have fun here.
Yeah, we do. I hate George so much.
Me too.
Whoa. But yeah, I mean, anyways, I think overall it's a solid film. It's not in my top half of MCU projects, and that is more the fact that there are better projects out there than this being a straight up bad one. And we've said that a lot on this podcast, especially for some of the middling films and projects, right? Is that the quality in the MCU is so high that we really have to raise the standard. We have to raise our own bar in evaluating these films.
Yeah, a lot of good points there. I want to touch on something you said right at the start, and that's where do you put this film?
Yeah.
Because, this is probably equivalent in terms of significance to the plot. Obviously, Captain Marvel isn't as significant to the events of Avengers Endgame as, say, the Guardians are to Infinity War, but this is like putting the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie right before Avengers Infinity War. Or, obviously much different film, but putting Black Panther right before Captain America Civil War, or Spider-Man Homecoming right before Captain America Civil War. You're getting an introduction to the character, but since you're getting it right before this big team up movie, it feels a little shoehorned in its place. And again, this movie's got a special place for me because it is the first MCU film that I saw in a movie theater. I took too long to catch up. I know. We've talked about it. It's I don't know. I've talked about films that have, like Doctor Strange, that have climbed in every viewing. This film's declined for me in every viewing. I just think, the way that Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, veers, sort of accepts her past just through conversation with Maria and Monica Rambeau. I feel like that's a little too quick, a little too, we're doing this for plot convenience rather than, someone who was convinced her whole existence was, this space warrior from Hala with the Kree, now realizing that, oh, I was taken from Earth 6 years ago. it's kind of like, all right, I guess that's where we go from here. A lot of the dialogue in the film, the script is one of the weaker ones in the MCU. I just feel like, you know, I mean, Brie Larson does a good job with what she's given, but there's nothing that really stands out about this character the way that, great performances and great scripts have given us the best of Natasha Romanoff, the best of Wanda Maximoff. You have these great female characters in the MCU, and Captain Marvel, while super OP and very powerful, is just, and she's written much better in Avengers Endgame, I think. Obviously I would have liked to have seen more of her in Endgame, and I'm glad that we're going to see more of her in the Marvels next year. And we saw more of her in What If. Obviously Brie Larson didn't voice the character, but it's a good character. She's got a great comic history. I just don't think that this is the film. And Clark Gregg and Samuel L. Jackson are there. It's fun. Ben Mendelsohn is a great character as Talos. I just don't think that this is the film, especially not in this place in the story, to do a 90s set, quasi wannabe Guardians soundtracked, poorly scripted origin story.
Yeah, I agree that it is poorly scripted. And I just I don't know how you can't really recover from that. No matter how good the performances are.
I mean, there are films with a good story outside of the
Yeah.
MCU and within. There are films with good stories and bad scripts.
Yeah.
That's been done plenty of times.
Yeah.
But like, for a story and character with this significance to what was to come, doesn't get me there.
Yeah, I think they also just didn't quite know what to do with her, right? Because I think Endgame probably swallowed up some of what they maybe wanted to do, and Marvel kind of was like, no, we're moving in this direction, so you can't really do that right now. And then of course she essentially had to be written out of Endgame because she's so powerful, but we never really get that. I mean, we understand how powerful she is, sort of, in Captain Marvel, but it's never really revealed that she's kind of like overpowered the way that she is in Endgame, where there's a reason for her to be written out of the story, essentially, for, I don't know, basically 3/4 of the movie. Probably more, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that is kind of where it suffers too, is because it, all of these factors coming together is that, it was released right before Endgame, poor script, not knowing what to do with her, all of it sort of came together and created this perfect storm of, okay, yeah, she's a great character, but like, why did we do this? I mean, why is she here right now in this moment, right? I mean, either bump her up a couple of slots in the theatrical release or wait until after Endgame to give her a really good story, where maybe in Endgame she was trying to find, maybe in Endgame that's where you show that she's super overpowered, but then you go back to the origin story and then really flesh out sort of why and how she developed. I don't know. I mean, it's really tough.
Yeah,
it's really tough.
It's a tough nut to crack. Again, it doesn't really work where it goes in the MCU.
Mm-mm.
The story is fine. Captain Marvel becoming Captain Marvel, going from this, inhibitor chip, Veers, just a Kree soldier, to Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. It's a good story.
Yep.
I take issue with the dialogue. I take issue with where it falls in the story. Also, and just one of my bugaboos before we get into rankings and ratings is just, if she came to Earth in 1995 and the Kree came to Earth and the Skrulls came to Earth in 1995. Why in 2012 does Nick Fury tell the original five of the original six Avengers, that they needed a defense system because of Thor and the destroyer that came in the first Thor film? Didn't S.H.I.E.L.D. know about aliens from 1995? That again, that's me nitpicking, but it falls into the question of what was the plan, which I think sums up our thoughts on Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So why don't we get into rankings and ratings?
Yeah, it's in the lower portion of my my rankings. I'm gonna throw it at 22 out of 32 projects, and give it a 78. I think that's that's as high as it will go, in terms of both numbers right there. Like George said at the beginning, it's not gonna improve like Doctor Strange has. It's either gonna stay the same or it's gonna go down. I don't think there's just no way in my mind that it goes up.
Yeah, we're riding a roller coaster. I think we're in different points on the roller coaster with this
Yeah.
film. Your ranking is about as high as I would go to.
Yeah.
This rewatch put it about as low as it will go for me, and it's a big range.
Oh, no.
So I'm gonna put it 29th out of the 32 projects, which is about as big a separation as we've had, which is good. It makes for good discourse. But again, if it were, your 10th and my 17th, that would be another conversation to have, where one of us clearly likes it more than the other. This one, we're a little bit a little bit down on it right now, even though you gave it a 78 and I'm giving it, drum roll, a 58.
Yeah, it's a big gap.
That's a big gap. That's probably the
big
biggest.
gap.
That's probably the biggest gap we've had so far.
Yeah, might be the biggest
But
one that you see.
But still, you said yours is the highest you'll go on it. 58 is the lowest I'll go on Captain Marvel.
Mhm.
It's got great action sequences.
Yeah.
It's got a lot of good humor. I love Samuel L. Jackson in this film. I think the characterization of Nick Fury is as close to an origin story as we're going to get. That's fine. He's great in this film. Everything else, I like the visuals. I like the musical score. I noticed the musical score a lot more this time than I have in previous viewings, and maybe that's because I was focusing more for the rewatch, but that could elevate it alone from this low point. I'm at the bottom of the bell curve. You're at the top, so
Yeah, I'm very much at the top. And
we'll meet in the middle sometime.
Scraping the ceiling of whatever the ranking or rating it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's going to do it for this episode of the rewatch. We will see you tomorrow to talk about Avengers Endgame. What a movie. Have a good night.
See ya.